Evening Forum. My name is John Goliatino. I'm your host. This evening we're going to be talking to Joe DeSilva Jr., who is the Democratic Town Committee Chair, about the recent occurrence in the Danbury Democratic Party. For example, the primary that recently went on, and our candidates in general here in Danbury. And I welcome you to the show, and I'd like to welcome you, Joe, to the show.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome. Before we get into the topic and some questions that we've already worked on, if you'd like to talk us a little bit about yourself, how you got to your current position, a little bit about your family and so forth.
Well, as you indicated, I'm the chair of the Democratic Town Committee in Danbury, and I grew up around the Democratic Party. I think I was knocking on doors with my dad when I was like 9 years old. Little kid, vote for my dad. Because my father was on the city council for a long time, and my mom was involved, and that's how I obviously got involved when I was a kid. Town chair for about 3 years, 2.5.
Right.
The Democratic Town Committee, as you know, is a body of 28 people. Our main function is...
Well, I was going to ask you that, but maybe a little more about you're an attorney by...
I am an attorney by trade.
Right.
Politics, unfortunately, doesn't make you any money. Usually it costs you money, as you will know.
Okay. And now let's get into our question, which is the first question is basically, what is the Democratic Town Committee? What's the function of it?
The town committees for any political party, the Democratic Town Committee in Danbury specifically, it's a 28-member body in Danbury. We have 4 members of the town committee per ward. There's 7 voting wards in Danbury. It makes up a 28-member body. And our main job is, frankly, to nominate Democratic candidates to run for office and
raise money,
elect those Democratic candidates to office. Raise some money and handle the day-to-day activities of the party. We're not so much a policy body. We do, on occasion, take some policy positions for some...
On the local issues.
And local issues, and even some broad national issues. We did take a policy position against the privatization of Social Security. But if we're taking a policy position, I would really hope it would be relatively obvious as to why.
Yeah.
Usually we're more of a mechanical organization.
Right. Okay. As of late, an example of what the local party does is the primary that recently was fought.
On August 12th, there was a state Senate primary.
Okay.
Dwayne Perkins was the endorsed candidate. The state Senate district, the 24th district, includes all of New Fairfield, all of Sherman, all of Danbury, and about 45 or 50% of Bethel. The nomination for that seat was won by Dwayne Perkins, who's a 5th Ward Danbury City Councilman, at a convention held in May of delegates of all those towns, and he won an overwhelming convention vote from the delegates. There was a primary. His opponent had obtained the correct number of signatures necessary to force a primary, and there was an actual ballot box primary on August 12th, and Dwayne won somewhere between 8.5 to 9 to 1. It was about 1,000 votes to about 150, plus or minus.
Right.
When you add in all of the towns.
That's a significant vote.
It was a very significant margin.
Right.
The turnout was about 9% in Danbury.
And which is normal for a primary, right?
Well, it might be. It's hard to know what would be normal yet. This is the first time the state changed the law in 2004, and state nominations, whether it be for U.S. Senator, Governor, Congress, State Representative, State Senate, have all been moved back to May. They used to be in July. They've been moved back to May. And primaries have moved from September back to August. Right. Since they've done this, we've only ever had one other primary in August, and frankly that was Mayors Malloy and DeStefano for the gubernatorial nomination, and Senator Lieberman and Ned Lamont for the U.S. Senate primary in 2006. And frankly, everybody knew there was a primary in 2006 unless you were living in a cave somewhere in, the Yukon Territory of Canada. I mean, everybody knew it. I mean, between those 4 candidates, they probably spent $12 or $14 million on the primary. I'm focused on the primary in 06. Right. This year, turnout was low everywhere. It was 9% in Danbury, which was actually pretty good. The overall rough turnout in the 4th Congressional District, from what I was reading, was about 9%. And that was for a congressional primary. Right. So 9%, I think, was actually pretty good for an August primary.
Yeah, consider it's not September any longer. It's in the middle of summer vacation time.
And we taxed our memories the other day. And even Mike Siri couldn't remember the last time there was a state Senate primary in Danbury.
Right.
And Michael's memory goes back, obviously, 50 years.
50 years, yeah.
And nobody could think of one, certainly not post-1965 when they changed the way districts were apportioned and votes were apportioned when they did the new Constitution. So people aren't used to it. It was something new, and we did get, a fair turnout for it.
When you consider it a prime vacation week, 9% is pretty good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Were any lessons learned, since it's... did you do anything different, or was it pretty much the same way of churning out the vote?
Everything is different. Everything is new this year. There's new campaign finance rules. The legislature did a comprehensive campaign finance reform about 2 years ago. This is the first year it went into effect.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
State Senate candidates Dwayne had to go out and raise, and his Republican opponent did the same thing. He qualified. He was actually Dwayne's Republican opponent in the Senate race was the first person statewide to qualify under the new system. And basically what has to happen,
it's 300.
A state Senate candidate needs to go out and raise 300 donations from people who reside in the towns the district sits in. Plus they need to also raise $15,000. Those two requirements aren't tied together, but you have to meet both thresholds, and once you do that, you qualify for public financing of your campaign.
And that's roughly double the money?
Well, yes and no. What happens functionally, the state Senate candidate raises their 15 and they get an $85,000 grant from the state.
Oh, okay.
Establishing a $100,000 budget for a state Senate race. For Dwayne Perkins, because there was a primary, he was entitled to a primary grant of $35,000, money that could only be used for the primary. And now that the primary's over and he has won, he'll qualify for his grant of $85,000 from the state.
Now, there's some people that are out there, go to work and go home and may have missed all that because some people just don't like bad news. And I don't blame them. Sometimes the news is depressing to me.
Without a doubt.
So if they miss that, what's the logic behind the state paying for that? Is it to take the taint of candidates being bought by...
Precisely. The purpose behind the bill, for good or for ill, and there's different things about the bill that are good and different things about the bill that are bad, but the big fundamental changes they made was, number one, they lowered the maximum contribution limit for a state Senate candidate. It went from $500 as a maximum donation to $100. For a state representative candidate, it went from $250 to $100. And the other thing they did is there's a 100% prohibition on any donations from registered lobbyists and from state contractors. Now, that's being challenged in the federal courts right now, and it'll be interesting to see with what the federal courts do with that, whether they uphold the ban or not. But that was the functional purpose of why they did this, was to eliminate that money from the system, replace it with public money, so it gets some of the special interest influence out of the process.
Right. Very good. Now, in addition to our state candidate, our state Senate candidate, we also have state reps that are running. Maybe we can go district by district, starting with the 2nd district, the lowest number, which was imported, I don't know how many years ago it was imported.
2002.
From, 2000. I figured you'd know the exact year. I was going to take a stab at it. From the Hartford area, and that's why we got a low number compared to our 138 number that we have in one part of the city.
And the reason why the numbers are a little out of whack is they reapportion every 10 years, and Danbury has grown, unlike a lot of other cities in the state. And we've been entitled to larger proportions of state representative districts, and they're not about to go out and renumber the whole 151 House districts.
So the 2nd came from the Hartford area, and the 138 came from Norwalk.
I believe so.
Right.
I believe so. And the 138th came in 1992.
Right.
The 2nd district came in 2002, and Danbury...
We just lost our tree, but...
Well, things happen.
Okay. We got insurance.
That's okay. I'm a lawyer. But yeah, we did, and I think we're going to wind up actually growing a little more. So 2012 will be interesting. But the 2nd district is a Democratic incumbent, Jason Bartlett. Jason's grew up in that district, I should point out, is part of Reading, part of Bethel, and the southern and southwestern corner of Danbury, the airport area in the Danbury 6th Ward, and the Long Ridge Road, Brushy Hill, Route 7, Lake Wabeeka area in Danbury, and into parts of Park Avenue and by the Danbury Mall. Jason's originally from Reading. He resides in Bethel. He was a former member of the Bethel, chair of the Bethel Youth Commission, I believe.
Right.
He ran in 2002 and 2004, didn't quite make it those 2 years, ran in 2006, and won all 3 towns. Did a great job. He's done a great job in Hartford. He's been very vocal for the interests of all 3 towns. And it's an interesting district because it's 3 distinctly different constituencies.
Right.
Between Danbury, Bethel, and Reading. You have a more of a rural, more of a suburban, and more of a city pieces. So it's been an interesting challenge for him.
He definitely has a cross section.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Then next we have, I guess, if you want to come to the east a little bit, you have the 110.
Right. That's Representative Bob Godfrey, who's a name that will obviously be very familiar to most everybody in Danbury. And Bob's been in Hartford a long time. He's the Deputy Speaker of the House at this point. People, compulsive watchers of the Connecticut version, CTN, the Connecticut version of C-SPAN, I'm sure have seen him presiding over the House.
Right.
Bob has a lot of influence in Hartford. Nobody works harder in Hartford for us in terms of things he's brought back to Danbury, like the Patriot Garage, buildings and assets for Western Connecticut State University to grow the university, improve the campus, for senior citizen issues, CONPACE, prescription program, and veterans tax relief, and senior tax relief, and things like that.
Right.
So Bob's done a great job. I would fully expect him to.
And he's had, how many years again was that?
He was originally elected in 1988.
Yeah, that's true.
He's the Dean of the Danbury delegation and one of the more senior members in the House.
Right, Deputy Speaker.
And a large part of the institutional memory in that institution. So.
Right. And then you go a little north of that, you got the 109 district.
Representative Joe Tabersack.
Right.
It was an open seat in 2006.
Right.
Lou Wallace retired, much to our dismay. And we got very lucky. We nominated Joe Tabersack 2 years ago, and he worked really, really incredibly hard. Won a much more resounding victory, I think, than people were expecting. Not the people that were close to him or close to the campaign, because we saw how hard he was working. But I think it surprised some people when he won by over 1,000 votes, which in a state representative district race, in a district where there's only 11,000 total voters, 1,000 votes is a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And he did a great job, and he's done a fabulous job in Hartford. Last Thursday night, he hosted, for the 2nd year running, a forum for veterans at the Catholic War Veterans. He brought down several people from the state, the state and the Veterans Administration to meet with veterans and discuss issues that are obviously important to them. One of them obviously being tax relief for veterans, and which they've clearly earned. And I mean, that's one of his signature issues. He's been very vocal about Candlewood Lake and other, development issues in the 109th. He's done much more effective than the average freshman.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions, a lot of problems with the power company on the lake.
Without a doubt.
Festering, constantly festering. It's tough to resolve those things.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And I'll skip back to the 138th State Rep District in a minute, if I may, and jump ahead one notch. When it comes to Candlewood Lake, Joe Tabersack is one of the people we need to thank, and Chris Murphy, our congressman. As anybody who lives on the lake in any of the towns surrounding Danbury would know, and obviously the people in Danbury live on the lake, the owners of the lake have the right under federal law to implement what's known as a shoreline management plan. And they can actually charge the residents who live on the lake a fee to maintain the shoreline management plan.
Right.
They'd never done it before. The lake's been sold 2 or 3 times as a result of the deregulation in the electric industry. And they had a plan. They spit out the plan, and they were not taking comment. They weren't taking input. They refused to hold a public hearing. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, who's in charge of monitoring the situation and overseeing and regulating the industry, wouldn't hold a public hearing. It was Chris Murphy that forced the Bush administration to hold a public hearing, which they held in the district. I believe it was in New Fairfield, actually, and a lot of people showed up and had some input. The plan did go back. It's now been revised, and the lake's being sold again, so we'll have to see what comes of it. But for Chris Murphy, I don't know if we would have had the opportunity to
address
have that input.
Right.
And Joe Tabersack, obviously, on the state level, was very instrumental in that, too. But it really took Chris's influence in Washington, something that Nancy Johnson, his predecessor, clearly wasn't willing or interested in doing.
Right.
And, I'm sorry, back to the 138?
Oh, yeah, 138 was the next thing. You go west from there, and you get the 138.
That's the northwestern portion of Danbury, pretty much from Danbury High School over towards the New York border. We nominated a great candidate. It's the one seat Democrats don't hold in Danbury. We nominated a gentleman, Bill Melillo, who's a retired Danbury. He's a lifelong Danburian. He came here when he was a young child.
Right.
Grew up here. It's his hometown.
And former police captain.
Yeah,
Right?
yes, he's a retired Danbury police captain. He was there his whole career. He's still working now in retirement, a little bit part-time. But he was a captain with the Danbury Police Department. He's an avid golfer. He's an environmentalist and a conservationist. He's a really interesting candidate. He's a good human being. People like him. He's a nice guy. He's honest and he's genuine, which, when it comes to politics, is sometimes, surprises people, but he truly is. I think all of our candidates this year are. Bill's already out there working hard. He's knocked somewhere in the vicinity of 1,500, 2,000 doors already this summer, and ready for a real push into the fall. I believe he's just about ready to qualify for public financing. His campaign, actually, by the time this airs, he may have already qualified.
Right.
And it's just a really exciting race. Bill had run for the city council last year in Danbury. While he didn't win, he ran very well.
Yeah.
Yes, he was did very, very well. And that district, actually, it's not just the northwestern and western portion of Danbury. It also actually includes part of Ball Pond and New Fairfield. And it'll be interesting to get out there and focus on the issues that are obviously relevant to those voters, too, which may be a little different than the issues that affect other parts of the district in Danbury. That's
true. And, well, first of all, before we go, maybe talk a little bit about Congressman Murphy. Let's give the website and telephone number if anybody's got any questions about candidates.
Well, our website's DanburyDemocrats.net. We've had it up for a long time.
Right.
We're actually getting ready to debut a new website soon, hopefully in the next month or so, I hope.
Okay.
And we're really excited about it. The person who's the committee that's putting it together has done a lot of really nice work.
Right.
Putting it together and getting it ready, and we have a great website designer putting it, the mechanics, the code, the stuff that I don't understand how to do on a website, putting it together, and we're really excited about it. And our phone number is 203-778-3661.
So if anybody's got questions about candidates or would like to volunteer,
absolutely,
those are the most important things.
And we have a headquarters on Main Street, across from the Danbury Library. We've been there since
next to what used to be the old Palace Theater.
Correct, and hopefully the new Palace Theater was open and showing movies again during the Connecticut Film Festival. So hopefully we'll see the resurrection of that building on Main Street and help revitalize. And in that instance, it's the owner of the building doing it, because the city has really dropped the ball over the last few years on paying attention to downtown. And it's nice to see a private owner working hard to invest money in a building like that to try and revitalize downtown. We've been in that headquarters since 1981, and hopefully we'll be there for another 30 years.
Whatever.
And we're there Monday through Thursday. We're there every evening. Those nights, Congressman Murphy will have people working out of our office as well. We're there every weekend. So obviously, anybody who has any questions, come down, stop in, make a phone call, send an email.
That was one of my questions, is Congressman Murphy does have a local presence. He does have a portion of the headquarters that... He
actually has a congressional office in Danbury and Ives Manor for official congressional business, and he will have a campaign staffer full-time assigned in Danbury who will likely be doing a lot of work out of our headquarters. And we're very lucky in that regard. Mike Carlo, the gentleman he's sending down, volunteered with the campaign a couple of years ago. He's a WestCon grad, so he knows Danbury.
He knows the town.
Yeah, he does. He does, and he's a good guy.
Right.
So we're very lucky, and we're very lucky to have Congressman Murphy. He's been very, very good to Danbury. We have not invited him to an event he hasn't said, yes, I'll come to, or if he couldn't, apologize profusely and send whoever he could. He's been here. He's done a forum on mortgage foreclosures and relief. He did a forum on, obviously helped do the public hearing for the Candlewood Lake.
Right.
He's done some other things. He does his Congress on the Street Corner program, where he literally invites the public to come see him in front of a shopping center or a supermarket or something.
He's got a phone in. I know a couple of times I wasn't around, but he called and said, hey, we're going to have a call-in show type of thing.
Yep. He's been very responsive, and he's done things that extend even beyond the district. Candlewood Lake is obviously important to everybody in the 5 towns that border the lake and anybody concerned with the environment. And anybody, frankly, who's tired of taking it on the chin from an energy company, to be frankly honest, as if they need to make any more money this year.
Right.
But he's also done things that extend beyond. The best example is contractors working for the federal government in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, private companies who've been hired to go over people like Blackwater, who have gone over to Iraq and gone over to Afghanistan and obviously been involved in some pretty controversial activities there and investigations, and their security companies and whether they're really acting like military companies and whether they are appropriately doing what they've been hired to do, whether they're exceeding their authority. Congress asked Blackwater, which is a private company based out of Virginia, how much did you make? How much money did you make from the federal government last year? And the owner refused to tell the Congress because he said, we're a private company, we don't have to. Well, Chris Murphy was instrumental in getting a law passed that if you make more than 70 or 80% of your annual revenue from the federal government, you have to disclose what your profits are. And that's an important thing when you're talking about the fact that this is a company who went from single-digit millions in contracts to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions and closing in on half a $500 million or more in government contracts. That's important. It's our money. It's our tax dollars. They shouldn't be able to hide behind being a private company, and that was one of the things that Chris was instrumental in doing.
That's good. Now, I know that there's some people might be thinking, who else is running this year? We have the presidential races. For those people that are wondering this, not me, but there might be some people. Is there anybody else higher up running in the state during a presidential year? Do we have any local people or anybody further up that might be running in the presidential year?
Well, there's 5 ballot spots this year in each of the state rep districts, which is the smallest breakdown we have on a local level this year. You'll go president, Congress, State Senate, State Representative, Register of Voters. I don't want to forget our Register of Voters is running for re-election.
That's what I was alluding at.
Ostensibly, the Democratic and Republican registers are the only ones that were nominated, as far as I'm aware.
They get nominated, and if somebody else wants to challenge them, otherwise it's pretty much an automatic.
Ostensibly.
One person votes and they're in.
Ostensibly.
Yeah.
Theoretically, a minor party or a third party could nominate somebody in campaign and win. I don't recall it ever occurring, and suppose it's possible.
That'd be a fluke. Yeah.
It would be a fluke. But there is no U.S. Senate race in Connecticut, so that actually takes one spot off the ballot. This is one of those federal election years or state election years that we don't have a U.S. Senate.
Because it's a 6-year term. And that's why you got a gap.
A third of the Senate runs every 2 years, and this is the 1 year we're not part of the third. Our third is in neither of our...
2 years from now.
2010, 2012.
Right. Now you may want to repeat your the website once again and your telephone number. And
it's DanburyDemocrats.net. And look for the new website coming soon.
Okay.
And the phone number is 203-778-3661.
Okay.
And again, we're there pretty much every evening, and we'll be there a lot on the weekends and stuff, so just come down, call us.
We have about another 3 minutes or so, 3-4 minutes. Let's comment on what you think the get out the vote is going to be like in Danbury, as far as the what do you think Obama's prospects are in Danbury?
Well, I think Obama's prospects in Danbury, like everywhere, are very good this year. The country is clearly, people are of the opinion that the country's on the wrong track. I don't know anybody who says we're on the right track. I think Barack Obama presents a unique opportunity to move beyond what we've had the last 8 years, which has just been an absolute unmitigated train wreck. The level of malfeasance and nonfeasance in this administration is absolutely mind-boggling, and John McCain presents no real alternative or improvement. I think Obama presents a huge opportunity to move beyond what we've had and get the country going again, create new jobs, and move in a new direction.
Are there more people coming into headquarters as a result
I think
of the economy and the energy crisis? These are all things that have happened under the last administration.
They're huge issues. I mean, we elect 2 oil men and then invade the country with the 3rd or 4th largest oil reserves in the world, and gas has tripled since George Bush has been president.
Right.
It's absurd. And yes, people are much more excited. We're getting phone calls for Obama materials. We've had people call and offer to volunteer. And I think it should be a great year for turnout. Presidential elections are always big turnout years. This may rival 1992, the Clinton-Bush election in 92, where we were nearing around 60% or more. So I think, you know, the Republicans are largely out of touch in the state and in the national level. I mean, the state level, Governor Rell vetoed a 35-cent increase to the minimum wage, which Representative Geigler from the 138th, the Republican there, and Senator Cappiello, who would like to run against Congressman Murphy, both voted no to increase the minimum wage and then supported the governor in her veto.
Right.
Luckily, the Democrats in the legislature overrode the veto, because vetoing a 35-cent increase to the minimum wage in May, when gasoline rose 35 cents that month alone per gallon, is absurd. It's cruel. It makes no sense. And it defies all of the research and all of the proof that a minimum wage increase does not do anything to affect creation of jobs. All it does is affect, hopefully, the ability of the 65,000 people in the state of Connecticut to eat better who work for minimum wage.
Because
that's how out of touch they are on a local level.
Because those people tend to spend every dollar they get anyway.
They have to.
Because they have to. You know, just to make a living.
They can't possibly live without spending every nickel they have. So that makes a difference in their lives, and that's how out of touch Governor Rell is. It's how out of touch Representative Giggler is, Cappiello, and that's just emblematic of how out of touch they are on a national level, where John McCain doesn't understand the economy, and his chief financial advisor, former Senator Graham, thinks the American people are whining because they don't think the economy's great.
Yeah.
Well, if you're not an oil baron, the economy's not great, and that's how out of touch they are.
It might be good for the top 15%, maybe, but certainly not for everybody else.
I don't even know if it's the top 15. I think it might be the top 2, which John McCain fits into very nicely with his wife's money.
On that note, I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, and I want to thank the viewers for tuning in to the Community Forum. Tune in next week, same time, same station. We'll have another interesting program. Good night for now, and we'll see you then.